Ken Jeong, depending on who you ask, is either the world's favorite Asian American
Toodaloo, mother.
or one of the most hated men in the Asian community.
Some people pro Ken Jeong and some people really against him.
I don't like Ken Jeong's character. He's been an embarrassment to Asians.
Isn't he the dude from The Hangover that plays the grossest stereotype of an Asian?
Ken Jeong.
Fame, fortune, and more. Ken Jeong rose to prominence during a time when Asian representation in media was almost non-existent. And on the surface level, some might consider him a potential role model. But the story of Ken Jeong is a cautionary tale, a reminder there are things far more important than money and fame. And the reason as to why he is such a controversial figure in the Asian community can be traced all the way back to the 1900s, during a time when the film industry was experiencing its golden age. Hollywood was a key component of the American way of life, with over 65% of Americans going to the cinemas on a weekly basis. Movies became more than just entertainment. They started to shape and reflect society's cultural and social norms. Nowadays, we know that Hollywood is run by some pretty powerful and horrible people. For many actors and actresses, landing roles meant literally sucking up to people like this guy.
Harvey Weinstein, who believed in us and made this movie.
Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. Thank you, Harvey Weinstein.
We also know Hollywood is and always has been very white, from actors to directors to film executives. So it might not surprise you to know that historically, Hollywood wasn't very kind to minorities. Asians in the early 1900s were referred to as the Yellow Peril, a threat to white jobs, values, and way of life. As such, Asians in movies were portrayed as sinister villains, evil forces for white heroes to overcome. Oh yeah, they were mostly played by white actors doing yellowface. From the 60s onwards, depiction of Asians in movies changed from evil villains to whatever the this is.
Let's go, lady! This time I'm warning you!
The vast majority of Asian characters were just negative racial stereotypes, and they existed solely to give white audiences someone to laugh at. And if Asian male characters weren't a stereotype, they would be completely emasculated. Hollywood was so against Asian male characters being considered desirable that in the movie Romeo Must Die, the ending was changed from Jet Li and Leia sharing a kiss to a hug because, quote, mainstream America, for the most part, gets uncomfortable with seeing an Asian man portrayed in a sexual light. Female Asian characters, on the other hand, were largely depicted as
Me love you long time.
Eventually, Hollywood also started rewriting Asian characters as white characters and casting white actors to play Asian characters. To this day, the majority of Asian characters in movies are still joke characters. Knowing Hollywood's influence on pop culture and societal norms, it's easy to understand why racism against Asians is so normalized. Now, over the years, many Asian actors have risked their careers to challenge all the nonsense in the entertainment industry. For example, Bruce Lee, who, in addition to being the first Asian actor to break the barriers placed on Asian men in Hollywood, also refused to play roles that depicted Asians in a negative light. John Cho and Kumail Nanjiani refused to fake exaggerated Asian accents in major movies for people to laugh at. Daniel Day-Kim, Kal Penn, and Dev Patel have all been vocal about the typecasting of Asian actors as negative stereotypes. And people like George Takei have used their platforms to raise awareness about the lack of positive Asian representation in media. They decided to take a stand because they understood the harmful effects these negative depictions of Asians could have on individual people and society at large. Numerous academic publications have detailed how negative media representation can normalize discrimination and the mocking of Asians, while also implanting and reinforcing negative biases people hold against Asians. This is especially problematic because there are very few positive or neutral representations of Asians in media to counterbalance all the negative ones. These harmful and dehumanizing depictions can also cause Asians to develop internalized racism and self-hatred, especially in young impressionable kids, while also creating a state of perpetual learned helplessness, whereby young Asians feel they are unable to break free from the stereotypes assigned to them based on their race. I could keep going on, but I won't, because let's be real, do we really need scientific studies to know that reducing an entire race of people down to negative stereotypes is bad? If we keep telling young people there is something inherently wrong with them, then they are going to believe that as true. Thanks to the efforts of many self-respecting Asian actors, things were looking up for a while around the late 2000s until Ken Jeong showed up.
Inscrutable man I am.
That is all mostly improvised. Dan told me later he was just furious. Pretty soon thereafter, I stopped improvising on that show.
During a time when Asian actors were trying to break down stereotypes, Ken Jeong dedicated himself to keeping them intact. If you look at Ken Jeong's filmography, 99% of characters he plays can be summed up in 3 words: ridiculous Asian clown. In fact, Ken Jeong has become the face of all the negative Asian stereotypes that exist in Western culture.
Isn't he the dude from The Hangover that plays the grossest stereotype of an Asian?
I'll be forever known, and I don't mind. I don't think I'll ever play a, just balls out funnier character than Mr. Chow.
Here's a script where you jump out of a trunk and show everyone your micro penis.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in.
Yeah,
Done.
I'm in.
It's fine.
Can I sign up for part 2?
Yeah.
Oh, there's 3 of them? Great.
And that was my idea, to be naked in the movie.
The cherry on top is, Ken Jeong is aware of the negative effect he's having on the Asian community, but he doesn't care.
No one like you.
In fact, he actively mocks people who call him out for the harm he's doing. If you have a problem with him perpetuating negative Asian stereotypes, according to Ken, you're just a teenager who can't get laid. Ken made this remark during a show he was performing for his primary audience, white men. And that's the biggest issue here. If Ken was just making fun of himself, or making content for an Asian audience, then no one would care about what he's doing. But Ken Jeong is enabling a persistent disease, the problematic segment of Hollywood and Western media that historically and even to this day tries to paint all Asians in a negative light. And this also happens to other minorities, even Black Americans, until they started fighting back.
You think Hollywood is racist? Yes.
And have you noticed how it's always people like Ken Jeong who are chosen by the Hollywood elites to represent Asians in Western media? They are the kind of people the media wants the broader population to associate with Asians. Even on social media, the Asians who get featured by traditional media are people like Uncle Roger and Stephen He O'Byrne.
Nobody use tomato for Thai red curry.
People who have no problem selling out and making fun of their race and heritage for other people to laugh at. Or maybe I'm wrong, and people like Harvey are just misunderstood. The funny thing is, while Uncle Ken Jeong likes to brag about how his actions have made him rich and famous, every single time you see Ken, he is either humiliating himself or being humiliated by others. That's what's expected of him now. It's clear not many people respect him.
Work with that Asian guy again. What's his name?
You know, I worked for that chick. That's
See?
Huh?
Ken Jeong.
Ken Jeong.
Ken Jeong.
Ken Jeong, yeah.
Ken Jeong.
His Netflix special was also a massive flop, which unsurprisingly relied on making fun of Asian tropes and stereotypes. His show Dr. Ken was also a flop, which unsurprisingly relied on making fun of Asian tropes and stereotypes. But what's really unfortunate, no sarcasm, is Ken Jeong has spoken up against anti-Asian hate and Hollywood's cultural insensitivity, but no one cares. He even made an entire show about anti-Asian hate, which was another flop. The problem is when your entire career is based on perpetuating negative Asian stereotypes. Anytime you talk about anti-Asian hate, it feels very fake and performative. And honestly, I have even less respect for him now because his actions and words are completely incongruent. So not only is he the biggest Asian sellout in modern history, he also comes off as someone who has no integrity. And that, my friend, is why you should never aspire to be someone like Ken Jeong. Especially now that Asian actors and productions have finally managed to achieve mainstream success without giving up their dignity.
To all of you out there, please keep your dreams alive.
In recent years, we have finally seen positive Asian representation in Western media with shows like Beef and Warrior and films like Searching and of course Everything Everywhere All at Once, all of which feature Asian characters who are complex and relatable multi-dimensional characters and not just simple degrading stereotypes. Their success is evidence that Asians can succeed without sacrificing their self-respect, and that Asian Americans no longer have to stay in the stereotypical boxes media elites desperately want to keep them in. And what we, regular everyday Asian people, can do is keep demanding and supporting media featuring positive Asian representation, and not just representation for representation's sake. We also must be more vocal and angry about bad Asian representation. Because that's the only way change happens. For decades, Black Americans also got the same treatment from Hollywood. But after years of being vocal and fighting back, now we even have black superhero movies, which no one imagined would be possible back when I was growing up. And now for every Kevin Hart, you have 10 Jamie Foxxes, Denzel Washingtons, and Idris Elbas. The entertainment industry is not going to give us positive representation out of kindness. So we must take action and speak with our wallets and attention. And of course, make sure to support all the Asian actors who are fighting to break down barriers. If we all do our part, then perhaps one day it will be a normal thing for Asian children in the Western world to see people who look just like them as relatable heroes on the big screens. And if you are a nation who has low self-esteem and you're having trouble finding pride in your Asian heritage because of Western media, then please pay attention. Number 1, review, diversify, and be more selective with your media consumption. Don't just watch whatever Hollywood feeds you. Do your own research and seek out shows like Beef and Warrior. And if Western media is making you feel bad about yourself, then watch more Eastern media. All the negative stereotypes about Asians perpetuated in the West, unsurprisingly, don't exist in Eastern media, especially those about Asian men. Recognize what Hollywood is: a for-profit machine run by the worst people imaginable. Enjoy the entertainment value their movies provide, and nothing more. And remember, you do not have to let other people define who you are. I know it can be difficult, having to deal with all the stereotypes and misconceptions, and people acting like somehow being Asian makes you inferior. But understand, they are all subjective, constructed beliefs and not objective, universal facts. So don't feel bad about yourself because of someone else. You're not a feather in the wind. You have agency. So control the narrative you have about yourself and make it a positive one. Bruce Lee passed away in 1973, yet to this day, he is still remembered as an icon, someone who helped an entire generation of Asians develop self-respect and pride during a time when racism was rife. Likewise, Ken Jeong will also always be remembered, but for all the wrong reasons. Long after his modern minstrel act fades into irrelevance, legacy is all we leave behind, and Ken's legacy will serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder there are things far more important than quick money and cheap laughs.